All right, my name is Wendy Guzman. I am one of the lecturers here at Nassau Investments. Mike Ely asked me to do this simple video that talks about the different no money down strategies and how to do more deals as a result of knowing these strategies. So, little disclaimer here. So, what you're about to learn is not legal, real estate, or financial advice, but is intended for educational purposes only. Some of the examples cited here may not be achievable by everyone, especially those who will not implement the strategies, techniques, and tactics revealed in this presentation. Please consult your legal, real estate, or financial professionals before investing. All right, so with that out of the way, we'll discuss three different no money down strategies without raising capital. Okay, so these are truly no money down strategies. And then number two, how do you find more deals by using these techniques? All right, so technique number one is called master lease option. What is it? It's basically leasing a property with the right to sublease. Okay, so that's the master lease by itself. You can also have a master lease option, which means that in addition to having a lease with the right to sublease, you also have the option to buy the property for price A so that you can sell the property for price B, which hopefully price B is higher than price A, therefore creating a spread for you in the process. And in fact, people use it to create two profit streams. So the first one is the monthly profit stream, which is simply the difference between your sublease and your lease. So for example, you can lease a commercial property for 10,000 a month, okay, and then you can sublease it for 13,000 a month, creating a $3,000 a month spread. And typically you can use a master lease. Typically it's like no money down. Okay. Now again, it depends on the seller situation. If the owner or the seller is not that motivated, you may not be able to get a like zero no like zero money down at all. You might need to put a security deposit, and the first month's rent. All right. So that can be, one of the downsides, which I will talk about later. All right. And then, you know, when you have the master lease option, therefore you're creating a back end profit, which is from the sale of the property. Because again, so for example, let's say you have an option to buy the property at $1 million, then you can sell it, at $1.3 million, creating a $300,000 gross spread. That may not be your net because then, there is real estate agent commission, and other selling costs and closing costs involved. But you get the point, right? Those are your two profit streams. You get a monthly spread and your back end spread as well because of the option component. All right, so when do you use it? Typically this is being used for commercial properties, for apartment buildings as well. For example, you can, have a master lease. You lease the entire building, all right, and then you sublease, each, you have the right to sublease each of the units, all right. uh you know More recently, the master lease concept is being implemented or applied in Airbnb, in what is known as Airbnb arbitrage. So you lease the property, let's say monthly for 1,200 a month, and then you sublease it Airbnb, for $100 a night. All right. Now, obviously, you don't lease it the entire 30 days, most likely, but even if you lease it for 20 days, you're obviously way ahead. So you can see why, having the master lease concept with the right to sublease can be used for Airbnb arbitrage. Now, what are the downsides? Sophisticated sellers of commercial properties usually require an option fee for you to have, the right to buy it at price A, and usually that option fee is non-refundable. So for a $1 million option price, for example, the option fee, can be as high as, let's say, 3% or 5% or even 10%. So and then in a foreclosure, your option is likely going to be worthless, to be honest. So meaning, when the owner of the property, let's say, goes into foreclosure, and you have the option to buy his property, in front of a judge during a foreclosure proceeding, your option is basically, worthless, even if you have a notice of option. It can cloud the title, but the first mortgage holder, let's say he's the one foreclosing, trumps your option anytime, right? So, and especially if you haven't recorded it, then the judge may not even recognize it. You may not even know it, for example, because you may not even get a notice of foreclosure when the property goes into foreclosure. All right. So with the master lease option, with an option to purchase, you have like very low control of the property from a legal standpoint. Again, this is not construed as legal advice. Consult your real estate attorney. When if and when you are implementing this. All right. So more importantly, how do we find more deals using this technique? So for example, when you go to loopnet.com, you might find commercial properties that are in great areas. All right, but it's just that maybe the seller is going through like a critical illness and therefore is not heavily involved anymore with the property for obvious reasons. And then you can come in and help the seller out. Hey, Mr. or Miss Seller, I can help you out. Let me have a master lease for like $3.50 per square foot, with your 10,000 square foot building, office building, and then I can sublease it, per cubicle, whatever, at $5 per square foot, and you created $1.50 per square foot spread, over $10,000. I mean, 10,000 square feet, so you can see, how this can be useful for you, to find more deals now that you know this technique. Okay. Now, technique number 2 is land contract, also known as contract for deed. What this basically is that the owner, becomes the bank, meaning, he becomes the lender now to you as the borrower, all right? And also the buyer for the property, but you don't get the deed until you fulfill the terms of the contract, hence the term contract for deed. Okay, the land contract is actually a short, you know, for land installment contract. So you're basically buying the property on installment. All right. So why do you use this in addition to creating two profit spreads like the master lease option? Because, for example, you can have a land contract, for the entire property, for example, right? Well, land contract is usually is actually for the entire property, right? For example, this is exactly what Mike and Nate did, on a 40 one unit apartment building. Okay, so they have it land contract at one price, uh, 1.25 million, and then and at the same time, their obligation to the seller agreed to it, is for the seller's mortgage to be paid every month, okay, with the seller not having to worry about anything about the property. All right. And then, you know they were able to increase the rents over like 15 months, and at the end of 15 months they got an offer for 2.1 million. All right. So they're making money on the rent coming in. The net operating income, is higher than the debt service that they're paying out to the seller. Okay. And therefore they're creating a spread there. They have, quarterly distributions. Okay. And then when they sell, they created a profit again there. Okay. So then you have more control actually by doing a land contract versus a option. Okay. So when they use it again for commercial properties, apartment buildings, for single family homes, then what you do when you have a land contract with a single family home, you can then sublease it. You can lease option it, meaning you sell it on a lease option, okay, to a tenant buyer. Okay. So you can use that. Now, land contract especially is good when the property needs repairs, because typically, because you have very little control, or a lot less control, with a option, because basically you don't have any equitable, well, you have some equitable interest in the property, but it's not that high, so to speak, um, then the problem is if the property needs work, if you're going to spend money in renovating the property, but why will you renovate a property you don't even own, right? Therefore, it doesn't make sense to do it, but with the land contract, given that you have some ownership interest in the property by virtue of the contract for deed, stating that, you know, um, you know, just like a typical when you purchase a property, right? Even though the bank has the mortgage and note on the property, mortgage lien on the property, right? You're the owner, okay? Now, a land contract is something like that. However, you don't have the title yet, okay? You can think of it like the title or the deed is in escrow and it's released to you once you fulfill the terms of the contract, all right? So, so technically you own it, but you own it like your ownership is contingent to you fulfilling the terms of the contract, which is paying the mortgage and the note. Okay, paying the note, right, so that the mortgage is released. All right. So therefore, when you when the property needs renovation or repairs, it is good to do a land contract. For example, me personally, I did a land contract on a 36 unit building that needs work, that needs like $200,000 in renovation. Okay, so the land contract makes more sense to do it in that situation. Now, the downside is the lender can call the loan due, meaning usually the way the land contract is structured, I mean, ideally, like the seller owns it free and clear. Therefore, this doesn't become into play, right? But sometimes the property is not free and clear of any mortgage, and there is a underlying mortgage, and technically, when the title transfers, okay, the lender can call the loan due. All right. Now, one can argue that, it's not yet, you know, uh, transferred over, but it's already in escrow, right? So that can be kind of tricky. Okay. So that's one of the downsides. However, will the lender call the loan due? They might, but will they really? Especially if the property is a performing note to them, meaning you're paying the mortgage, right? By virtue of the land contract. Well, most likely they won't. Okay, so how do you find more deals because of this? Well, you can network with landlords, for example, and when you encounter a landlord who is a tired landlord, maybe his properties need renovation, because maybe his properties, he doesn't have enough money to fix it. Okay. Maybe his tenant just left, like he got the misfortune of having a professional tenant. Maybe his properties has code violations. All right. Or maybe the landlord owned the property free and clear, and he's just retiring, and his kids don't want the property. All right, he just wants to convert it to some cash now or whatever, or a payment stream, and that he doesn't have to deal with tenants. Then that's how you can find more deals, by networking with landlords who are tired landlords or who may be retiring, and therefore you can help them out. And by doing that, you get one more deal because one more technique that other investors don't know about. Okay. Now, the third technique is subject to, and basically the seller deeds you the property while the mortgage and note remains in his or her name. Okay. Now, why? Well, you have the highest level of control because now you have the deed, you have the title in your hands. Okay. Um, Now, when do you use it? Usually for single family homes, smaller apartment buildings, and land, you know. And the reason why this is not usually used for commercial properties and big apartment buildings is that the sellers of these properties are usually more sophisticated and they don't want to give up full control of the property, to a buyer because they know once they deed you the property, you own the property, but they own the mortgage and the note, right? So, they lose almost like 100% control of the property. In fact, they lose 100% control, and usually that's not good, especially if they don't know you. I mean, this can be, and this has been abused by some, unscrupulous, people. They're really scammers who call themselves investors. So they end up, getting the property and then they don't do anything with it. They rent it out, cheap or whatever, and then they sometimes don't even pay the mortgage note. Okay, so that's not good. Now the downsides are the lender can call the loan due. Okay, definitely because of the due on sale clause. All right. However, again, they will likely not do that if you're paying the mortgage. Okay. Now, all the liabilities of the property also becomes your responsibility because now you have the deed. You know, in fact, in a foreclosure proceedings, the lender will likely send you a letter. Okay, you become party to a foreclosure proceeding if, let's say, the owner or the borrower, of the underlying mortgage doesn't pay the mortgage. Okay, so because not only do you have equitable interest in the property, you actually own the property. You are on title. All right, like municipal liens. Okay, you are taking all of this on, right, when you are on the deed. Okay, now obviously you mitigate those risks by doing a title check. All right, now how do you find more deals because of it? So for example, you can look for expired MLS listings or vacant for sale by owners. All right, especially if you check counter records and see that there's still uh, a substantial mortgage on it, like houses with very little equity, let's say 10 to 15%, where the owner needs to move quickly or has already moved out but can't afford to make two mortgage payments. Like they were trying to sell their house but can't, but they needed to move because of a job situation or whatever. You can then buy the house subject to the existing mortgage, so you have full control of it. Sometimes the seller, doesn't mind as long as you're making the mortgage payments. Okay, and for them, they view you as relieving them of the debt obligation. All right, and then you can turn around and do a lease option with the property. Okay, so that you cash the seller out once your buyer cashes you out. Okay, so those are the three techniques. So master lease option usually for commercial properties and big apartment buildings. All right, then you have land contract, also for commercial properties, apartment buildings, and single family homes. And then subject to usually for single family homes, you know. And I forgot, for master lease option, you can also use that for Airbnb arbitrage. All right. So hope this, is very informative to you guys. And in the next video or whatever training video that that will send your way, hopefully will help you in your real estate investing journey.